right, this is the Catalyst Effect. I am your host, Isaac Carter, and we are here at Austin Tech Week, presented by Capital Factory, and I'm here with Tiberiu Motoc?
Motoc, that's
Motoc, awesome, and you are with Commerce Ship.
Yes, sir.
Capital Factory really knows how to put on some great events. Have you been having a good time here at Austin Tech Week?
Yes, second day. Yesterday was pretty interesting. Looking forward to an interesting session about startups earlier in the morning, and then I think that day has more in stock for the rest of us.
Nice. Let's have you come just a little closer to the mic. I was only here part of the day yesterday. I was playing with my 3-year-old, jumping on mattresses on the floor, and I fell off the bed like we tell our 3-year-olds that they will, and ended up messing up my leg, and I got to go to the doctor and had some fun. So yesterday I went back to the house and just hung out for a bit. But Tiberiu, I'm really excited to hear about Commerce Ship. What is Commerce Ship?
So we're a new startup in the shipping and logistics space.
Oh, huge opportunities in that space.
Yes, and we help brands and 3PLs save money on shipping. Average about 35%, and we have a platform, a shipping platform that manages your orders.
Okay.
And we also have an insights and analytics component. And our unique value add to the industry is that we're creating an optimization loop between our insights and analytic component and the TMS,
okay,
the part where you manage your orders.
So you are you helping with optimizing like LTL? Are you doing cold logistics?
It's e-commerce,
okay,
not so much LTL, not so much cold, perishable type of products. I would say the ideal customer profile would be in the, let's say, vitamins type of products, over-the-counter, of course, apparel, electronics,
okay,
small auto parts, anything that could be boxed in a small container.
So large quantities of small shipments.
Yes.
Awesome. I love it. So you and I did not talk much before here, so you don't know this about me, but I worked with MainPoint for a little while, and I've done a lot of logistics optimizations, mostly larger scale. So LTL, like 30% of a truckload would be a small shipment. Uh-huh. So helping to optimize LTL and FTL. We've been using a lot of acronyms, and a lot of folks that listen to us won't know what a 3PL is. So if you could help me break that down.
Sure. 3PL stands for third-party logistics.
Yep.
They're the folks that do the shipping on your behalf. So if you are a brand and you're just starting out, usually you pack the product in your garage,
yep,
or you use some kind of a drop shipping method. And as you're growing up, as you're expanding, then you don't want to do all that stuff. You want to focus on product, you want to focus on marketing, and you want to leave that part for somebody else. So 3PLs are warehouses that are located all over the country, and you ship your product in bulk to a location, and then they do the pick and pack from you. You send them the orders, they fulfill it for you, and then they ship it out to the end customer.
Awesome. So, and your product is helping, do you help with network optimization, with product placement?
Yes. So the way we do that, so I myself, I have worked for Endicha, which is now part of the Octane brands. So I have quite a bit of background in shipping and logistics. By the way, my background is actually computer and electrical engineering.
Okay.
And I wanted to jump on the software bandwagon, and I got basically typecast in the shipping industry. It's been my bread and butter now for 15, 16 years.
So we don't have anything here that we're wearing or using or sitting on or holding in our hands that haven't been shipped from somewhere to us. So logistics is, I've done a lot of work in logistics, and logistics optimization is really critical when people are complaining about inflation, especially during COVID. What they're really complaining about was the cost of logistics. There's more to it now, but the cost of getting things from one place to another place has been a major, major challenge. And even the big guys, probably Amazon handles it better than anybody else, but most folks just have not figured out the logistics and having the products in the right places and then having it available to their customer when they need it.
That's right. I mean, Amazon, of course, they disrupted a lot of industries, but very much the shipping industry.
Fulfillment, logistics,
Of course, you probably know that they have their own fulfillment.
FBA.
Yes, and you don't even need to advertise your products or sell your products over Amazon, and you can still take advantage of FBL, right? So. So quite a disruption there. There's still a few things there that Amazon still doesn't address, and it's quite a very large addressable market, right? Because, like you said, everything is being shipped. So there's different solutions out there, and of course, there's different ways to compete against some of the existing solutions. Now, just to answer your earlier question, because you asked us, how do we work with the optimization? So we work both with brands and 3PLs. So the brands themselves, if you do your own fulfillment, and there's still some mid-size. So by the way, our ICP is, let's say, someone that's a somewhat successful brand. So anywhere you have to have at least 50 packages a day. If you're below that, there's quite a few solutions out there that address that type of I guess shipping.
50 packages a day is where you start seeing the rewards of optimization. If you're doing 10 or 15 shipments a day and you try to do the optimization, you might save pennies. But once you start getting more volume, there's a lot more optimization opportunities.
Right. So about 50 packages. That's also when carriers start taking an interest in you. You would have FedEx and UPS and USPS knocking on your door and offering you different contracts. There's a lot of hidden clauses in there, so you don't really know what you're paying until you start getting your bill at the end of the month.
Yeah, and if you happen to ship anything with a lithium battery in there or anything like that, it starts getting really weird really fast.
Absolutely. And then it's not just the content of the packages. There's a lot of hidden fees, like a residential fee, address correction fees. So at the end, you might get a great, let's say, a great ground discount, but then you would get with a lot of surcharges for, let's say, residential fees or, let's say, dimensional fees. So you don't really know, like I said, about how much your shipping costs until you look over quite a period of time, and you have to look at a lot of different KPIs. And that's what we've tried to do at CommerceShip. We basically try to throw in a lot of KPIs, analyze shipping data over a historical period. And we're basically saying, well, first we act as audit. We're basically saying, well, you didn't get charged properly on this line item or that. And then we also go into optimizations. So when we go to optimizations, the way what we do, we compare the different rate cards and different shipping location, a lot of what if scenarios, right? So we look at carriers, services, air versus ground, packaging, and what comes out, you get a bunch of actionable insights. Now, the traditional spend management companies, you would have to take those insights, and someone in your warehouse has to implement those.
Right.
You would have to change your carrier, possibly renegotiate a contract, change whatever. Something was shipped by air, and now it has to be shipped by ground. Let's say somewhere around the zip codes close to your fulfillment warehouse. The idea there is that don't ship air, don't ship priority mail, for example. You could ship USPS ground and you could save 40%, right? So those things add up. I mean, just as an example, how you could save money, right? So now someone has to take in and has to type in those zip codes and says, well, when you go to the zip codes, use USPS ground, do not use priority mail. Because why? It gets there in the same amount of time, possibly faster, but you also save money, right? So those are the things that come out from a spend optimization platform. What we do, we take a lot of those ideas, a lot of those optimizations, and we feed them back into our transport management system. It's the software platform where you manage all your orders, where you sync your orders from the different marketplaces and warehouse manage WMSs OMSs, and then a lot of these insights, they go back into the TMS, and the optimization is already done there for you, so you
That's
don't
great.
need to actually take action.
You know, what always happened to us was we would go in, negotiate with carriers, run optimization, and then shipping behaviors would change. And so they would come and say, how much did we save? Like, okay, well, we negotiated this, and then all of a sudden you started shipping straws express across the country. So before 3% of your shipment was high volume, low weight, and now it's become 40%. And you ran out of straws in your Dallas office, so you're shipping them from Philadelphia to Oklahoma. And so your shipment behaviors have changed, so your spend has gone up, but it actually saved you more than you would have if you had done these foolish things with the old contracts, but you're spending more overall because your network's not optimized and your shipping behaviors have changed. Do you have anything in Commerce Ship that allows people to see what they would have spent if they had shipped it the old way, or is this purely this is what your spend is?
Yes, we do have that. That's basically how we run our billing.
Nice.
We always maintain a baseline, and we're basically saying, had you run things on your own contract, you would have been there. As you're using our software platform, your shipping spend is here. So,
And that's really helpful because knowing your spend now versus, especially in logistics, there's so much is based off of seasonality. Customer behavior in e-commerce changes week over week.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to say, oh, hey, I implemented some new savings. Did I save money? Well, I spent more than I did last month. That doesn't mean that you didn't save money. So having that built into the platform is really great. Tiberius, how did you get here? What was your journey like? Why are you involved in Commerce Ship?
So like I said, electrical engineer turned software, and went down the logistics software. And I was always curious as an engineer, how do our customers use our software? So I always asked the business folks.
By the way, that is a question most engineers do not ever ask because most engineers don't care. They care about the software, not about the customer.
You know, that was 2010. It was about a few years after the iPhone came out. And Steve Jobs was making so many good points about the usability of his products. Remember, he had the whole idea about getting anywhere within 3 clicks, right? So, you know, even though I was a backend engineer, I had a lot of interest about what goes on the UI side. And I was always curious, you know, what's the UI, UX of our platform? We're doing really great on the API, but what was going on there on the UI side? And do they get there within 3 clicks? How many pop-ups do they have on the screen? Is that annoying them, right? So, you know, just Steve Jobs elevated the whole, not just his industry. I mean, he raised the bar on everybody else. So I was always curious, okay, how do people use our software? And I remember I begged the business folks, take me with you on customer visits. And I've gone on quite a few. I've gained an empathy for shippers, anywhere between, you know, folks doing stuff on Etsy where there are just a few packages a day, to big fulfillment warehouses where I could see them calling our API. I mean, you had no time for someone to click buttons in a UI, UX type of scenario. Everything was API driven. You have 100,000 orders, and then they have to be basically pushed out by end of day, right? So, you know, what happens there? So like I said, I gained an empathy for the small customer, for the large customer. So then I said, okay, I want to do my own startup. I think I can make a difference in the world, and I've done something. We did a merger with a company from Provo, Utah, and it was shipping to Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, so non-con United States. It was an interesting way to stitch together the long haul plus the last mile.
Yeah.
So, but I also I had to get involved in running warehouse operations. So I myself was experiencing the pain of WMS software, about working with different rate cards, different carriers, different providers, But that was, like I said, that was my previous startup. So now, when I started something new, I had to go back and I had to rethink. Okay, what pains did I go through back then? And I remember back then it was all about, okay, I get a bunch of rate cards from lots of different carriers. How do I really compare them? How do I compare, and how can I tell which carrier is the cheapest? And also, can I run scenarios, because you get hit with all these surcharges. Like I said, you could get a base service cost that's low, but once you add in the surcharges, the cost goes way high.
Right.
And of course, I was always close to the customer. Now, as I was a business owner in the past, and they always say, "Well, know your customers." So I knew what the industry wanted, and I really had an understanding about the market being very fragmented. So I said, "Okay, I think I can do a better job." So here I am.
So you are a new startup. Is your product in market already?
Yes.
Awesome.
So being a technical co-founder, I went a little bit crazy with AI, and I went back and I built a lot of features myself. But now I felt, I basically had to leave my engineering hat off, and now I put on my sales hat on. So now it's all about, we found product market fit, so now we're trying to polish the go-to-market strategies.
So we've been at a couple of conferences that would probably be really helpful for your key market. One is the small business show in Dallas. There's like 80,000 small businesses there, a lot of e-com.
Very cool.
That's coming up in November. And then there's a show called the Merchant Supply Chain Logistics Show in Vegas every year. And there's 30,000 white label and e-commerce folks that are there, eager to talk, eager to cooperate. And I think that they're all shipping things. So I think with what your business is doing, you're going to have a little bit of a hard time with the cold outreach, but going to conferences and meeting with folks, I think that's going to be a really good move for you.
I was in Dallas about 3 weeks ago at a Dallas reptile show.
Really?
Yes. I thought it worked out great for me. I got some great leads there. I was able to follow up with folks, a great community. I was able to follow through with some of those leads. So that worked great for us. And you're right. Running cold emails, cold calls, it's a little bit tough these days because everybody does the same thing. So I think customers are overwhelmed.
And I think the reptile show is kind of like a side. But when you go into white label, where they're actually doing fulfillment, and you'll have 20,000 vendors there, 6,000 vendors, where all they're doing is they're shipping. I know a guy that he goes to those shows. I've seen him at 3 or 4 of those shows, and he sells printing label printers. And he's always at all those shows, and that's how he does his sales. And he doesn't even have anything that I think that would be as relevant as what you have, So I'm interested in commerce-ship. Really great bumping into you, Tiberius. Thanks for coming on the show here.
Yes, sir. I appreciate the tips.
So for our listeners, how can they find you?
So I have a very unique name, Tiberiu Motoc, commerce-ship. If you put that on LinkedIn, if you put that on Google, you'll find us right away.
Yep.
I'm not so much active on Twitter, but LinkedIn, Google, you'll find me.
And it's commerce-ship without the space.
That is correct.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tiberius.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
We are having a great time here at Austin Tech Week, presented by Capital Factory. Come on down here. We are just outside of the lounge on the 5th floor, and I'd love to talk to you and learn more about your business. Thanks so much. Thanks, Tiberius. This is The Catalyst Effect. I am your host, Isaac Carter, and we are at Austin Tech Week Live, presented by the Capital Factory, and I am here with Jay Kriner.
Correct.
Awesome. I said your name right.
You did.
Awesome. And are you Man, I see this flyer here for a Gale project, and man, that looks cool. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Absolutely. So Gale project was started about a year and a half ago when we identified the need for public safety and why not use current infrastructure. And drones were a big hot topic.
Sure.
So why not make a modular remote monitoring, early alert, and drone dock system that ties directly into current infrastructure, meaning the utility pole, so it's high away from the risk.
Okay.
Being modular allows folks to pick and choose what they might need. And obviously, municipalities have a tight budget, so someone might say, I want monitoring, but then later on, I do want the drone dock, and all I have to do is just clip it back on.
That is really neat. So how did you get into this?
Thanks for ADD, trying to figure things out. No, I was in drones in 2016, and I saw the need for it back then, as well as for a drone as first responder.
Okay.
And I live in the Texas Hill Country, and we all know what happened in Kerr County floods, right? So that was another use case of why we needed something that was away from the risk, that wouldn't be affected in flood, but also provide a lot of insight and rapid response. Yeah. So, I'm a 6-time startup, 4 exit. I was a Shark Tank success guy, but nothing as successful and technology-based as the Gale system. So this was extremely exciting for us to launch.
Yeah, people look, we need monitoring systems, we need alert systems. Okay, you mount a large alarm to the pole. How are you perceiving the danger? These static systems are very more reactionary, and they don't give you a lot of information back. So you're kind of solving that problem, not just of how do we scream real loud and tell people there's a problem, but how do you detect that problem, and then how do you direct help to the right places so that the resources during a disaster, your resources are spread way too thin. But how to target that, is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. So the base of our station is what we call the brains. It's got high-vis cameras. We can see license plates up to 5 miles away.
Wow.
So that's got the public safety aspect of it. But because cameras are all based off of the quality of vision allows AI to interpret through it. So if we have the right modeling through AI, we can say, monitor the flood levels. Is the water rising? And we'll know remotely. And that goes to the public safety officials, so fire department, fire and rescue, police. But more so, it's got sensors such as atmospheric or weather monitoring. We were toying around with the concept of what if the camera was watching cloud formations, and if it started to see a swirl, that's something on the ground live right then versus watching it through a meteorology aspect in space. So we started to see use cases coming alive. It was starting with one concept, and then it just started morphing into like 20 others. But because it's modular, it allowed a lot of other technologies to be implemented that we didn't have to recreate, but we created the housing for it. So we were just recently speaking with a company that does called Drone Shield that does drone radars. And that's a big important thing to have, although we're not going to take down drones in the middle of the city. But knowing where someone is flying a drone near an airport and how can they address that for safety. But because our system's already there, we're able to just tie it right in.
That's awesome.
And now it's more agnostic. So there's a slew of sensors, there's camera systems, and on top you can have a really nice, pretty drone dock station too for rapid response. But again, not everybody needed the drone dock. So we were trying to find out what else could we do if we're not flying a drone.
Man, having the camera itself able to see 5 miles is huge, because I know a lot of monitoring of river levels and water collection levels have been happening with IoT devices. IoT devices are awesome when you can connect to them, and a lot of times these events are happening at times where connectivity is jeopardized anyway. Over time, the accuracy and the reliability of these IoT devices are compromised. So you have to have something, obviously, if you're doing public safety.
Redundancies.
Yeah, redundancies, but
Yes.
also accessibility, and then the modular nature of it is really important too, because that camera could say, okay, our visibility is reduced, I can only see half a mile, send a drone over here, and you know your gaps.
Yeah.
I actually worked on what we believe is the first cloud-based public safety software for monitoring train positions after a rain.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
Yeah, they send digicode over the rail. And guess what happens when it rains? The metal corrodes almost immediately, and you can no longer read the digicode. Trains were showing up places, and nobody knew where they came from.
Yeah.
Literally, I mean, it's directed, but they're reading digicode.
And that's a new topic for us too. Just came up out of Little Rock, Arkansas. They have a big
Okay.
train hub there.
Yes, they do.
And we were discussing the exact same thing, was asset management. Knowing what cars are coming in, how many do we have, where are they moving, the rates. It went as far as spill mediation. So if there was an incident, could we respond appropriately? Because there's not always roads along a railroad track, right?
Right.
But if we had a pole along the way, because they already have poles, obviously,
Yeah.
along rail tracks, we can say, okay, there was an incident, now pop up a drone. We can see if there is a spill and how to mitigate it because of its flow rate, or
Yeah.
where is it heading to, or what material. Can we do a car inspection live without getting there, 3 hours later?
Because you know what they do right now is they take a truck to the nearest access point and they drive
And
the
hook it
whole
up.
line, and then they radio back, okay, I need this stuff, and you could completely mitigate that by saying this is
Yeah.
what you need, this is exactly the size of it you need, send this truck to this location, because when there's a disaster, that is the worst time to try to send out to go and explore.
And you're going to only go with 90% of what you don't need, right?
Yeah.
So the guys that are responding to, let's just say a spill in the middle of nowhere, most of the time they don't know what it is yet. They don't know how big it is. They don't know the terrain it's going into. Is there a creek?
Yeah.
There's a lot of risk involved in that, and there's only one way to get there.
Yeah.
It's hopping
Over
on
the
that rail
rail,
track.
and
Yep.
Maybe there's one direction or the other. Which
Yeah.
way do you go? Do you head from the south? Do you head from the north? You send
Yeah,
send
and
the
I'll tell
drones
you,
out.
we didn't see that one coming.
Yeah.
We didn't know we'd look into rail systems. We didn't look at maritime. We didn't think about all that. It has started with just a drone dock on a utility pole. And then I was like, okay, well, if we're not flying a drone, what else can we do? And
Right.
then a million ideas started coming out of the woodwork on that one.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so we are still pre-production, but going through a full prototype right now. That's a really exciting phase for us because we're going to destroy 20 of them, right?
Yeah.
Figure out what doesn't work. Setting up the pilot systems with different cities and different areas. As a matter of fact, I just met with Manchester, UK today. They were here in Austin, and they were like, we want it. And I was like, all right, I'll figure out how to get it to you.
So we got somebody we need to introduce you to out of Dallas. He's doing AI in the physical world. So he's very much, he's working with the military, figuring out if people are where they're supposed to be or if they're somewhere they're not supposed to be, and interacting with these live camera feeds to do decisioning on those feeds real time. He's got some things in production that may complement what you're doing. So we can make the introduction.
One big thing that we did is we partnered with Hanwha Vision. That's a
Okay.
NDAA compliant, DoD compliant camera systems from South Korea. They currently use them already here. But the nice thing about that is it's a camera you can tie into a current system. You don't have to use my software, my platform, my anything.
Right.
You already have one. We're just now providing a more unique system with more features all tied into one.
Nice.
So with that, they can tap in and do the vision analysis and AI analytics through that. The same thing goes for traffic incident management. Some guys from StreetScope were talking about that. They plan on routes for autonomous vehicles and commercial fleets. And they say, well, we need a camera that's tied into infrastructure so we can monitor risk.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, there we go. Here we are.
Yeah, I could totally see. I know that there's a lot of political charge around border walls and border crosser monitoring, things like that. The more wall that's built, that means that migrants are going through more dangerous and more remote places to travel through. Could be really important to send help to them with the
Yeah.
right supplies as they're coming through more rural and more precarious areas. So I could, so many opportunities.
There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of applications. We didn't design any of it for the negative or the bad, right? This was
No.
all to be helpful. So we looked at the payload capability. So you're saying, what if a drone could take water to somebody,
Yeah.
right? Or a life jacket? And people are saying, well, how big's the drone? What can you fit in there? And I was like, well, we can scale it small, big, whatever you might need.
Right.
So our current system's 30-inch diameter. And I was like, that's huge.
That is huge.
We can fit almost any commercial drone in there, protecting it in a housing and charge it all at the same time. And it's just down to the drone. What can it carry?
That's awesome. So how, you're a 6-time founder, you did your last exit, and then you were out looking for a problem, or how did you get
I think I'm wired different, so I'll have 100 ideas a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which one do I put in the time, passion, and money?
Yeah.
And stress, right? So I saw this one a long time ago, and it was one of those, I kept talking about it throughout industry partners and other folks, and I said, this has it's solving a solution, or creating solutions for a lot of problems. What applications can it, be put into the marketplace and commercialize with? And we thought of like one or two things, and all of a sudden another person told us 5 more things, and I was like, okay, well, this has really got traction.
Right.
So then my big thing was start asking the end users. I went directly and started interviewing people.
Yeah.
I said, what do you think about this? And I showed them renderings. And of course, it's not like the stuff we have rendered today in the CAD drawings, but I was like, what do you think? Tell me what you don't like, or tell me what you need. Because when I got some of the input back, I found that they did have a need, and they're helping me design the solution.
That, how many times founders skip that step? They have an idea, and then they start working on a product, and then they forget to go back and ask the customer what they need and what their pain points are. So I through our cohort program, I'm constantly telling founders, listen, you need to find your audience. Their audience has a problem, has a pain, a cause, consequence, and urgency. Don't solve low-pain problems that don't have urgency. Don't solve problems that don't come with consequence, that don't have a consequence. Yeah. Make sure, because so many times people read the Lean Startup and they say, build, measure, learn. So they go out and they build something. And then they go out and they say, hey, do you like this thing I built? And a lot of people are like, I don't even understand what you just built.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
That's kind of where we are now.
But sort of, but no, you have people that have stated a problem and you have a solution. So I love seeing this audience and then the problem and then the solution to problem matrix where you've built something that's componentized and you know that you can solve several problems through this matrix and then you know which ones to attack first. Now for you, it's pure intuition. 90% of startups fail. You know this.
Yeah.
But there's a pattern for
Yeah.
how to get past the intuition and into how do I create solutions that matter to people who are experiencing a problem that has a lot of pain.
Yeah. And I'll say this too, is doing this startup was completely different than anything else I've ever done. And I've learned a lot over the last probably 9 months. And some of the big things that no one ever taught me was surround yourself by like-minded individuals and you'll succeed.
Right.
So put yourself in ecosystems.
Yeah.
Startup ecosystems. Be surrounded by people that are either smarter than you or doing completely opposite, because you'll start to complement each other.
Yeah.
And the next thing was going out and you say you have an idea. Stop thinking about how you're going to stop thinking about succeeding. Start thinking about tell me what you don't like and tear it apart.
Yeah.
Beat it up, destroy me.
Yeah.
Tell me everything, because all you're doing is telling me how to make a perfect product.
Oh, too many founders go and say, tell me you love my idea. Tell me what I want to hear. And then they ignore the noise, which is the constructive feedback, what I don't like, why this wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And to some extent, you do have to ignore that. I'm sure you're going to have 10 people out there that say, oh, I don't need this because of
You got to
whatever.
toss emotion out of it.
Yeah.
And I've got the naysayers, right?
Oh, yeah, of course you do.
I've got the drone folks that are telling me that will never work. And I'm like, well, here I am. You got to use that as a personal fuel. But at the same time you're inventing something no one's ever seen.
Sure.
You're going to have to utilize other folks that already have things made. So like instead of me inventing the camera, I partnered with somebody who already had the best camera.
Yep.
I'm not making the drone because drones are kind of like a cell phone. There's going to be a new one next week.
Yep.
So once you start making things universal and leveraging major partners and getting them behind you, you're like leapfrogging.
Plus, in your specific situation, there are drones that can carry heavy loads. There are drones that can go long distances. There are drones that are designed to do network relays already. So you could send up some drones and they can go and they can stay up for 10 hours and provide network relays for emergency responders.
Absolutely.
Those are all out there already.
It's like a Starlink of the Earth, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I came across was folks were saying, how long can a drone stay up? And I was like, well, that will progress with technology. Don't worry about that right now. Someone says there's already a drone in a box. And I'm like, yes, but what happens with it? Flood, or you have to build the infrastructure, the fence, the foundation, a whole bunch of things to
and
make it
public
happen.
safety is completely different than running down to Walmart and buying a drone and flying it up and taking pictures of it. So the certifications and the
Yeah, Part
requirements is
107. Yep.
Yeah. And so founders love to quote Henry Ford. If I asked the people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses.
Yeah.
What they don't realize is Henry Ford didn't invent the automobile. He just found a way to get that into the hands of people who wanted it and couldn't reach it a different way, to build it faster, cheaper, a little better.
Yeah.
And so he didn't reinvent a whole new category. Even Steve Jobs, he didn't invent the iPhone first. They took commodity hardware.
Look at Elon.
Yeah.
Tesla was already a company.
Yeah.
And he acquired it.
Yep.
So he just made something better.
Well, even his first, the thing he got the money from to put into Tesla was just a payment system.
Yeah.
Just a way for you to give me money faster.
Yeah.
If you look from a patentability perspective, the laws of obviousness. I mean, he built something very obvious. Of course, this needed to be built. So, no, you're not inventing a whole new category necessarily. What you're doing is you're borrowing brilliance, putting it together, making it accessible to
and I'll say this,
that need it.
and for every founder can understand this too, is if you strive to create the standard, the new standard, everybody's going to come up and build the next version of it. Okay, if there's $1 billion company who wants exactly what you have, who's going to build a different version of it.
Yep.
Just be ready for that. But you're creating the standard, and that standard is a stepping stone of innovation,
Right.
and it's going to push you harder and harder. So this is not the last version of this.
No. All right, Jay, you are speaking at 3 o'clock?
The pitching starts at 3. I believe I'll probably go on around 3:20.
Awesome.
So here at Capital Factory, floor 1, put on by Fiesta. It's one of the founding companies here for founders, inventors, entrepreneurs. I'll be pitching. I got 1 minute to pitch Gale.
Nice.
And they ask one question, and I get to answer it in 1 minute, and then they kick me out.
So did you already give your 1 minute pitch?
No, I've done it like at least 800 times today.
Nice.
But I'll be doing it.
Let's do the pitch.
I'll be doing it later today. So we'll see if I can mess up on this one. I got 1 minute.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jay Kriner, founder of Gale Project Technologies out of New Braunfels, Texas. Imagine you're in a remote environment and there's an emergency situation, just like what happened in Kirk County. We wanted to bring a solution, and that is the modular Gale System. That is a remote monitoring, early alert, and drone dock station that ties into current infrastructure. We are seeking a $5 million raise to take our operational prototype into manufacturing to execute our sales goals. If you'd like to learn more about our IP, our strategic partnerships, or our success rates and our winning team, please reach out at galeproject.com.
Perfect, man. I mean, for 60 seconds, I don't think you can get any better than that.
I don't know. I think I stumbled a little bit, but you got to keep doing it. I think I did it 14 times in the shower and at least 22 times on the way here. So,
Awesome. All right, Jay, thanks so much for being on.
absolutely. Thank you.
Welcome to the Catalyst Effect podcast. We are live from Austin Tech Week, sponsored by Capital Factory. This week, we are doing the Voice of the Founder, where we know that founders are creating amazing change. They're solving problems they're creating solutions to problems experienced by real people. And we found that when we talk to them, we find out there's a reason why they're doing this. And we really love hearing the voice of the founder. And I'm here with a really cool founder. You got a really cool solution in the fintech space. Uday, tell us about your business.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Isaac. Great to be here. It's a awesome meeting of great minds. What I do at Aurus is, this is a concept that I actually found lacking in the industry with the advent of technology and AI especially. I've been doing AI-related products and assets for a very, very long time now, since it actually kind of got generally available. What Aurus does is it is an AI platform, and it provides a whole set of AI solutions at its very core level, but still consumable by the market. So what you can do using a platform is build all those Lego blocks and build your own solution bundles. One of the core ones, the flagship product that we have, is called DoCrunch. And DoCrunch is responsible for looking and tearing down a whole portfolio of documents. You can either look at a document and then parse it down and tear it down, or you can look at a whole
Well, let's
set
do
of
this.
documents.
I like to, a lot of times, I'm a technical founder, so I a lot of times dive right into the solution.
Yeah.
but Donald Miller and several people in the marketing space have said, hey, if you focus on who you're serving
Yeah.
and what problem you're solving for
Yeah.
them, and then dive the solution, people can grasp it better. So, who are you creating solutions for?
So this is for the mid-market segment initially. Not to say that we can't serve the enterprise, but the mid-market segment is usually caught at the short end of the stick because all these AI projects are now kind of have a very modest success rate. But what we do is typically a $500 to $600 million business that has a huge operations, and they're basically dragged down by their own efficiencies on inefficiencies. So taking an example, a classic example of solution that I can build on our platform is a loan mortgage solution.
Okay.
Right? So if you were to go for a loan, tell me how long does it take? Anywhere between 3 to 4 weeks for your entire loan to be approved and the underwriter is comfortable signing on it. What we can collapse that to is just a 15-minute, because there's no reason that all the variety of documents, your pay stubs, bank statements, your if you are self-employed, your business tax documents and such cannot be read in just a matter of minutes, and then tie those all together as one case. So that's where the whole magic is. You are not looking at a document by itself, but you're looking at a document in its ecosystem as a case. And the entirety of the document in the case takes several weeks, whereas we can basically bring out all the discrepancies, any non-conformance to the date or the stale documents and such in a matter of seconds and minutes.
So how's that different from like what M-Trade in Oxford, Mississippi is?
Yeah, great question. Much of the competition right now is looking at documents by itself, like I said earlier, right?
Got it.
Whereas when we look at the documents, it's the entire ecosystem. A bank statement is a bank statement.
Yeah.
But when you put it in the context of a case that needs to be very recent, not more than 30 days old, it might take maybe an hour or 2 or 3, depending upon what your bottleneck in your traditional method is.
Right.
We basically, there's no more guesswork out there. Right? So
Okay.
we basically do that in a matter
So
of
like
seconds.
M-Trade is very specifically talking about the loan folder. So that's a loan that has already been fulfilled, and now they're trying to train it from institution to institution. You're saying that you can do the loan, and is this mortgages, auto loans,
Yeah.
business loans?
Again, great question. Yes. So I'll tell you this, Isaac. This platform, it's industry agnostic. That's a secret sauce, right? So whenever you're dealing with documents just floating around, the use cases in the fintech space specifically is KYC, AML, loan mortgage solutions, loan origination service, and a host of everything that goes around disparate systems and forms and such, right? We basically tear it down. We got about close to 100 AI models that are operating. We can also do a supply chain platform, vendor onboarding forms, right? Vendor onboarding where you got Oracle NetSuite and you got smart sheets, you got CRM. Everything needs to be brought together, but there's no single system of truth or a system of record. With Aurus, DoCrunch, you can basically throw it on the platform and it automatically basically finds its place and kinds of auto-organizes everything. And not only that, it actually does a reverse flip, which is actually fill up the form by itself. So there's a lot of productivity gains that we're talking about, and much of the devil is in the details.
Yeah, so you're also, I'm assuming, taking that document and extracting the useful information from that, so further analysis can be done on it. So you are not talking about loan servicing. You're not.
That's
talking
one
about,
of the perfect use case that we built our own solution on top.
So I worked for a fintech firm that did loan servicing for microloans, and so they were doing 1 million loan applications a quarter.
Yeah.
And those microloans, it got to a point where it would take 27 hours to do the daily servicing, which was a problem because the cash stores are only closed for 8 hours. Mm-hmm. So to get that processing done is on something high volume microloans, for example, is a lot of horsepower.
Yes.
And if you're looking at larger banks, for example, it's the same situation. You're servicing, aging those loans. Have you solved that, or is that the reason why you're hitting more mid-market and are you looking for more traditional loans?
Yeah, so we got a trajectory for growth, which is very clear in my mind. So let me articulate that to you and see what you think about it. But we are 6 months old into the business since the formation of the company, but this concept is not new to me. I've been thinking about this since I was at Deloitte and Google and all these places. So that's my background. And I've been taking products and solutions to the market all my life. Now, the mid-market segment is a good start because there's a lot of problems to be solved. And for the reasons that I mentioned, AI experimentation is too expensive because the rates of failure are high. But folks like me who have lived in AI can really make it real for the market. That is why I want to really go test the waters with some of the highly proven partnered customers who are really hungry to solve the problem before we go into the enterprise, because enterprise tend to be a little more process oriented. Sometimes they are burdened by their own process. The agility is not there, but I am really after successful implementations and really out there to make the difference. I see SMBs being a perfect target, even though they may not realize that so much.
Right.
But that's a whole. I'm mission driven to really help the SMBs because that supports about 50 to 60% of the U.S. economy, and there's a huge market there.
So, where are you in your life cycle? Are you MVP ready? Do you have active clients?
So we are gaining traction gradually, and we've just been out in the market very recently. We're actually soft launching it. We're talking to 2 customers already who are highly, highly interested in what we're doing. In terms of the product itself, we've done the best that we can. I don't want to go any further because I just don't want to develop the rest of the product in isolation. That is why we have launched an early adopter program. The URL is programs@Aurus.AI. Very easy to remember. Programs with an S at Aurus.AI. You can shoot us an email and we will have a good, healthy interview session to see if we are a good fit for each other. Okay. But we are ready with the product. It works like magic, but we need to really have a code development at the client's site so that they can really have an opportunity to influence our roadmap as we go and build it.
Awesome. And so a lot of these documents, they have a life cycle and that's where you end up going back and forth, and half the documents that you're filling out has information that you've already filled out. But the challenge is the next step in the approval and underwriting process doesn't have access to the earlier step.
Yeah.
Have you built workflow tools that kind of accommodate some of that?
Certainly. So we have the entire suite since we're talking about the loan origination and loan mortgage industry or that specific problem or solution, right? So we do have all the 3 stages. The first being the loan origination part, which is where a sales agent, a loan agent can go use our URL, register himself, put his NMLS ID and DRE ID, whatnot, and there are APIs to validate that it's a genuine person with a valid license. After that, the downstream flow is essentially get your own personal QR code and all that good stuff. But then after that comes all this whole pre-loan processing part, which is where the loan applicant has a portal where he's just throwing all his documents up, which he'd normally do, and our system will automatically fill up the application for you, for the most part, right? So much of the loan abandonment, much of the problem happens because the loan applicants find it difficult and they kind of walk away because it's like too complex, the 1003 form. Yeah. But we do a majority of that work, and after that comes, so while that handshake is happening between the loan applicant and the loan agent, we already have that thing figured out, and it automatically does the magic that we basically identify the anomalies.
Yeah, and it may not just be loans, because if you look for credit card processing, they're doing underwriting on that as well. And and we do know that there's a large abandonment problem.
So in essence, we got this whole core of the solution, which is reading documents at volume, at scale. I'm talking hundreds and thousands of documents. The volume is not a constraint, but it's compute could be the constraint. But once we get past that,
let me promise you, volume is going to be a constraint.
Volume is a constraint. Yes,
yeah,
that's true. Actually, I take that back. But there's always an upstream system and a downstream system, because either it's an Oracle NetSuite or Oracle applications or SAP in the case of manufacturing, what have you, or Workday or whatnot for an HR case, right? So we do live in the ecosystem, and we have very easy to use APIs or XML. So for example, in this loan, since we're talking about loan, we got the classic MISMO, 3.4, which is after the whole beautiful job is done in 15-20 minutes, you just at a push of a button, you can really send the XML back up to the Fannie Mae gold standard of
So you have the folder, and
3.4.
you can pass that over at that point through M-Trade or however.
Yeah.
But you're front ending that, and then awesome.
Seamless integration with your upstream and downstream ecosystems.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that is really exciting. It is very uncommon to find, there's a lot of founders here. A lot of times they don't have that connection to what the problem is and who their target audience is. So seeing that you are fixated on a specific problem, even though your product can solve a lot of problems. So we built something similar from a workflow automation, data collection perspective. But what we did is we said, hey, PSAI, our tool, can do anything, which means you can't do anything. If you're trying to serve everybody, you're not serving anybody. And we learned that the hard way, and I spent a lot of money to learn that problem, right? But you're saying, hey, here's a specific problem. I know exactly how to solve it. Here's a tool to solve this problem for this group of people. Yeah. And now your product market fit, yes, you're going to have to tweak it. Yes, you're going to learn a lot while you're out there, but it becomes a lot more clear because now you know exactly who to talk to, you know who your ICP is, and you're able to drill in there. So good job there, man.
Yeah, so I'll just say as a closing note on my end that I've been with Deloitte, KPMG, most of the time I've been doing advisory services. So I've observed a multitude of companies with different varying problems, but I focus on the common denominator, which is commonality, which is what I want to bake into my product. Beyond that, we are really focusing on nothing. If you say your product is a plug and play, well, you're talking Microsoft Word, just stick in a CD and it starts working. Our enterprise applications, none of their enterprise applications are that, right? But we try to minimize that after the early adopter with deep discounts with the customers that we will onboard. We will want to compress that professional services part of it, where there's some level of tweaking and configurations that will happen from probably a few months down to a few weeks, maybe just 2 weeks. That's the state of nirvana, because our product revenue is purely from the product, not so much from the services at this point.
Yeah, so I'm a data guy, so I like to play games when I go to the doctor, and they hand me 27 forms I have to fill out.
Yeah.
And I have to put my name, phone number, address on the top of every single form. I promise you that I changed the phone number for every single time. Or I said, right, Ron, I changed my name. I'm Elmo by the last form, because why in the world are you asking me for information that you already have 30 times? Yeah. It's 2025, why are we still on paper? But there's every time you ask for the same piece of information, one, you're creating a bad experience for your customer, and two, you're creating an opportunity for a flaw in the data. So automating that, getting that information, filling that form out based off of, I applied for a business line of credit with a company that was able to, I signed into my bank, and they pulled all of my history, all my attributes, everything, and then I signed in with QuickBooks, and I pulled out all my invoices in my customer list. And then I was able to say, you're approved for X number of dollars based off of this information. And it took 15 minutes to set that up. It was beautiful.
Yeah. That's the state of technology now.
I think that they lost their funding or something, because now I can't log into their portal anymore. They seem to be gone. Yeah. But having that work there's no reason why we can't do that. QuickBooks has the information. Gusto, my HR provider, has all my contract information, knows how much money I make every month. My bank knows what my cash flow situation is, even down to the credit card. So being able to sign into a couple of accounts, get all that information, fill out the loan, and then have it answer quickly. Absolutely, it's time for that.
Yeah, actually, that's a great use case. I'll tell you a parallel use case. In an earlier startup that I was a VP for product at, if you have the invoices for a company, you can know their entire financial situation. You know who their customers are, how fast they're getting paid, and what their cash flow situation is. Yep. There could be slips here and there, but generally with the technology that we have today, you can do predictive analytics and basically give a cash flow forecast, and a lot of metrics can be drawn from just the invoices itself. So I'll just pause it. There's much more science behind that in terms of the way you think about how companies can conduct business, but there's a huge invoice and receivables monetization business, which is not new. It's been there for a while. But yeah.
Awesome. Brother, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Another one of the amazing conversations we've been having here at Austin Tech Week. This is our second day. We are going to be here all day tomorrow on the 5th floor, right outside of the Connector Lounge at the Capital Factory here in downtown Austin. Capital Factory has just been an amazing host to us this week, and really encourage you to come down here and enjoy the next couple of days here at Austin Tech Week.